Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. Let's get started. As always, I appreciate your time and efforts. We have lots to go through in terms of our recommendations and voting and approving the recommendations for the advisory board moving forward. Let's start with a roll call. Kate?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Arlotto, you are here. Senator Klausmeyer?
Hi, Senator Klausmeyer wasn't able to make it, but I'm here on her behalf again. Sam Deschanel.
Thank you. Delegate Ebersol?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Good morning. Dr. Anderson?
Here.
Good morning. Pam Gaddy will not be joining us. Karen Bailey will not be joining us. Coach Bell? I saw you earlier. Good morning. Secretary Padilla? Andrew Tress?
Here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sheriff Adams?
I am here. Good morning.
Good morning. Chief Kiefer? I do not see you. All right. Laurel Moody?
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Director Engel?
Morning, Kate.
Good morning. Claire Cabral? I do not see Claire. Dr. Hoover? Megan Berger?
Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Coleman? Captain Herring?
I'm here. Good morning.
Great, good morning. Tom Albin?
Here.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Manfred Reek?
Present, I'm here.
Good morning. Lee Oppenheim?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning, Lee. Scott Tiffin?
I'm here.
Good morning. And Detective Smith?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
Good morning.
Thank you, Kate. Dawn, I think we have a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Fantastic. Thank you. Then we will move forward. The agenda was sent to everyone in advance with some an outline about how the voting will take place, how the meeting will progress today. Are there any suggested changes or alterations to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
So moved. That's Tom.
Tom, thank you. In a second.
Second. It's Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Any discussion on the agenda? Not seeing or hearing anybody. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Are there any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. The agenda will move forward. The agenda as printed. Before we get started, going through the voting and the voting session.
I see Captain Herring has a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If that was a question or a leftover from the vote. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss him before we moved on.
I didn't.
Leftover from the vote.
Apologies.
Leftover from the vote. Okay, good to go. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Dawn, for catching that. I didn't see that. Thank you. So just a couple things. One, I just wanted to say thank you to each of you for each and every month sticking with us and providing your professionalism, your support, your expertise. These have been a difficult past couple of years, and most of you have been with us on this advisory board since its inception. And so I want to thank you for that. For those that are not aware, this will be my last meeting. I will not be returning to Anne Arundel County Public Schools after June 30. And so I won't be with this group any longer. I've appreciated, again, your professionalism and your expertise and your caring on behalf of our students and staff. So I wanted to thank you for that. I am going to have to leave this meeting early, probably by about 10:50, unfortunately, but I have a meeting with a parent group that cannot be changed. And so I'm going to venture out of central office and meet with a group of parents this morning at about 11. And so I'm going to exit. With that, I'm hoping that we may be through the voting and we can adjourn. If not, we'll need to continue to move forward. And I would ask for a volunteer to chair us through the remaining votes after I exit. My screen is on and I see Delegate Ebersol, and I'm going to pick on you. Would you be willing to take over the chairmanship after I exit, probably about 10:50, if we still have some votes remaining?
Thank you for the nomination, Mr. Chair, and I accept gracious.
You are a good man. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. All right. So with that, we have a volunteer chair in place. Should we not be done by about 10:50? Kate, I'm going to turn it over to your team.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. So we are going to read off each of the recommendations you received in your package yesterday. I would ask that you bear with us. This is the first time we're attempting a poll for the voting. It hopefully will speed up the process. So we will read each individual recommendation while the chair then goes through the motions, seconds, and voting. So recommendation 1 is the state should identify and secure funding to conduct broad and targeted research and evaluation of efforts to determine the impact of legislation, policies, and other efforts on improving the safety of students and schools. Recommendation 1.1.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a motion to approve recommendation 1.1? And if you'd like to approve or second, just say so and repeat your name should you not be up on my screen, so I can identify you appropriately.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol, with the motion to approve. Is there a second to approve recommendation 1.1?
Second. Oh,
Thank you.
it was Dave.
Thank you, Dave. So with that, there is a motion and a second to approve. Is there discussion on recommendation 1.1? I'll look for hands. Andrew.
Were you trying to vote, Andrew, or were you wanting to have a discussion?
Sorry, I was just kind of moving it along.
I think my sense is, from looking at the array of people, there is no discussion, but ready to try this online voting thing. So let's rock.
You should have it before your screen and go ahead and vote.
Dawn, how many voting members should we have so that I know when to end the poll?
There are 14 voting members. So we will need 8 to approve any measures. 8 affirmatives.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm going to close the poll and show the results of what is voting.
Fantastic. Thank you. We'll move forward. Recommendation 1.1 was approved. Kate, recommendation 2.1.
Recommendation 2.1, conduct an assessment of data collected and collection procedures to determine how best to consolidate and report information that better informs school safety initiatives and actions. Recommendation 2.1.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a motion to approve recommendation 2.1?
So moved.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol. A second for
Second.
2.1.
That's Tom.
Tom, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on recommendation 2.1? Not seeing any. The voting poll is before you for recommendation 2.1.
All members have voted. I will end the poll and share results.
Wonderful. Recommendation 2.1 has been approved. Recommendation 2.2, Kate?
Yes, thank you. So there's a technical error. 2.2 and 2.3 are the same. 2.3 is expanded version of 2.2. So we're, if it's okay with you, we're going to skip 2.2 and go right to 2.3.
Fair enough. So we're eliminating recommendation 2.2 as written, and we will pick up with recommendation 2.3. Kate?
Great, thank you. 2.3, convene a diverse work group to review and modify as appropriate the existing arrest data reporting requirements to ensure school-based arrest data collection is distinguishable from community-based arrest, including those defined as reportable offenses.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a motion to approve recommendation 2.3?
Detective Smith, I approve it, sir.
Thank you, Detective Smith. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Bell, second.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on recommendation 2.3?
Yes, sir. Dave Engel, just a comment.
Yes, please.
My only concern with that is, while I agree with it, is we need to make sure that law enforcement is uniform crime reporting. They're doing what the FBI requirement is for reporting arrest statistics to the FBI. So when we're talking about looking at the collection of distinguishable arrests, law enforcement is kind of locked in with what they have to report to the FBI as an arrestable offense. That just, when the group's looking at that, that's something for consideration that they need to look at as well. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Any other discussion on recommendation 2.3?
We need to amend it to include what you just said. That's in compliance with reporting regs.
No, I mean, I think that was more a comment of being mindful about it, because that's already a standardized requirement for all arrest data. So it's just that, you know, if we're talking about it in the context of schools, for those who may not be as familiar with law enforcement, that we need to be mindful of the fact that they have their own set standard reporting requirements under the UCR as well. So to keep them consistent. Yeah.
Right, and this recommendation, to that point, Dawn, is about schools reporting the data forward,
Right.
not other agencies and their requirements.
Right.
Not seeing or hearing any other discussion, we'll move forward with the voting. The recommendation is before you. Thank you. Recommendation 2.3 has been approved. Moving to recommendation 3.1. Kate?
Develop or expand informational practices and training to educate stakeholders, including students, staff, parents, and communities, on identifying behaviors of concern. Resources should incorporate the student voice.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve recommendation 3.1?
So moved. That's Tom.
Thank you, Tom. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Dave Engel.
Second.
I'm not sure who I heard first. Dave Engel, was that your second?
It could be me or the other individual that said it. I think we talked over one another, sir.
Okay. Laura, was that you that had said second?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, that's
All
fine. I can.
Well, Laurel, so we're going to take your second. No
Okay.
offense, Dave. We're going to take your second.
Thank you.
And is there any discussion on recommendation 3.1? Not seeing or hearing any. The voting is before you. Recommendation 3.1. Thank you. Recommendation 3.1 has been approved. Recommendation 3.2, Kate?
Continue efforts that communicate the impact of trauma and the need for trauma-informed care.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve recommendation 3.2?
So moved.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol. 3.2 has got a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second. That's Tom.
Thank you, Tom. We have a second. Any discussion on recommendation 3.2? Hearing none, we'll vote. It is before you for recommendation 3.2. Thank you. Recommendation 3.2 has been approved. Recommendation 3.3, Kate?
Conduct an assessment of health curriculum, i.e. substance abuse, suicidal ideation across the state and ensure consistency of curriculum statewide.
Do I hear a motion to approve recommendation 3.3?
I'll jump in and approve that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. It's been approved. Do I have a second?
Second, that's Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on recommendation 3.3?
Just one comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Thank you, sir. Ensuring consistency is a heavy lift. I'm concerned about the use of the word there. I don't know if we'll work to ensure or if we need to. I don't believe that we can actually ensure that in every case. So I just concerned me a bit.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol. I will share that same concern. I will add to that concern if you don't mind. We say conduct an assessment of the health curriculum. Who is going to conduct this assessment? Is this something we're going to seek assistance from MSDE? It's certainly, I don't think, appropriate to fall upon the Maryland Center for School Safety to do, and I'm going to use the term audit, an audit of curriculum. For those that are not aware, MSDE sets and the State Department of Education sets the standards for health curriculum, and then each of the jurisdictions writes the curriculum to meet those standards, and superintendents are required to sign off on every several years that the standards are being taught in that school system and at all levels in all curriculum. So I've got some concerns, again, to share Delegate Ebersol, ensuring consistency because there is some autonomy in each of the jurisdictions about how curriculum is written and delivered, though the standards are what must be approved by the State Board of Ed, if any or all of that makes any sense. Just some of my thoughts.
So procedurally at this point, because there's a motion and a second pending for the language as it was read to you, you would need to vote on that language. And then should we need to modify that to determine that there should be an audit of curriculum compliance? Is that a way to phrase it? I don't know.
Right.
That we could have a secondary, rephrasing, and then you'd have to vote probably by raising your hands because we don't have a pre-configured poll for that, right? So let's deal with the first thing that's pending, which is that you need to vote on the pending motion on the floor, which both Delegate Ebersol and Superintendent Arlotto have raised concerns about for your consideration. So go ahead and place your votes on this, and then we can handle a secondary motion if necessary.
Thank you, Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
The vote is before you on recommendation 3.3. I don't know how we've got percentages and we need vote numbers, right?
Well, the percentages are indicative of the vote number, so it passed, so we're good on that. And it is capturing who's voting how, so we will have that on the back end later so we can appropriately document everything. But I think that the question now for the body is, would the body like to entertain making a motion for the Center for School Safety to collaborate with MSDE to conduct an audit of the health curriculum to determine compliance with the standards?
Yeah, I would move language like that. I would also add, we can evaluate consistency of curriculum statewide rather than
audit and evaluate consistency of curriculum.
But I would like, if it's appropriate, I would move that we adjust the language on this recommendation in that fashion.
Okay. So the motion now would be for the Center for School Safety in collaboration with MSDE to work on an audit and evaluation of the health curriculum statewide.
Well, and I thought it was also compliance to that they're complying with that curriculum.
Right, well yes.
As opposed to what is the curriculum? Just what is the curriculum? Are they also complying with then the delivery of it?
So audit and evaluate the health curriculum statewide to determine if it is compliant with state standards. Okay. So Jessica says she can modify the poll. God bless you, Jessica. Okay.
Hey,
you
Dawn.
write that in there? Yes.
Dawn,
Go ahead, Dave.
Just a follow-up question to that. I don't want to say my concern with that is, so if we're going to look to do an audit and we're going to look to see if they're compliant with the curriculum, that more than likely needs people are going to need access to PII. They're going to need access to some of the records on these students to see whatever's happening to the students. They are actually in compliance with the curriculum. Do you understand what I mean? So if they're training students on something, hey, here's what to look for, A, B, C, D, or E. The next question behind that would be the reporting. And is there consistency in the reporting? And the only way they're going to know that is to look at what's being reported. Do you understand what I mean?
So this is, the question is about evaluating the materials and the program selected by the local jurisdictions to comply with the state's standards for health curriculum. So it would not require looking at any grades or outcomes of students, no measures on that. It would require looking at the materials to determine if the materials and instruction curriculum being used to teach the health curriculum actually matches the state's requirements. So,
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dawn, can I just ask one quick question? Do we, as the advisory group, have the authority to say to MSDE, like, hey, we're going to roll on up and make you partner with us to review some curriculum? Like, is that within our scope of work? Because that feels like outside of our jurisdiction to me.
So remember, these are recommendations that the advisory board is making to the subcabinet, and the chair of the subcabinet is the superintendent of education. So even if the recommendation were to fall in, and Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, but even if the recommendation falls to the Department of Health, who also sits on the subcabinet, that is a recommendation that the advisory board could make. It is not a guarantee that these things will happen. It is a recommendation to the subcabinet that these are areas that you've identified that need to be addressed.
So we could recommend it, and MSDE could say, no, thank you, because we already engage in this practice in the following ways, and it would be fine.
right.
Okay,
And, and the way our statutory scheme for MCSS is written, it does require a lot of collaboration between the Center for School Safety and the Department of Education already. So, it's something that, having that kind of collaboration is already embodied within the statutory scheme, but they could in fact say no, or they could say, how about we do a presentation on what we already have for you and let's talk through it and take it from there. So there's a lot of options that could come back in response. All right, Jessica, did you manage to type down what the language is?
I believe so. I sent you I sent you a draft. I just want to make sure that's correct before I launch it.
Yes.
Okay.
And Dawn, for clarification, there has to be a new motion and a new second.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's what we're waiting for at this time. If someone makes a motion to approve this new language and second it, then Jessica.
Can we repeat the new language again?
Yes, that the recommendation is that the Maryland State Department of Education, in collaboration with the Maryland Center for School Safety, shall conduct an audit and evaluation of the health curriculum, and then the rest of the language from the prior recommendation would be included that covers what those curriculum areas are.
Are we keeping ensure compliance? Or ensure consistency in there? Because that's how we started the discussion.
Right, you have to audit and evaluate it first in order to determine, I mean, part of that would be determining whether it's meeting those standards or not. That's embodied within audit and evaluating.
But we're dropping the words ensure consistency, right?
Right.
I have to take that out, ensure consistency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll move that language. This is Scott.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
This is Lee. Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the now altered, amended recommendation 3.3? Seeing and hearing none. If you would, all those in favor, if you would.
Oh, does Jessica has a poll to pop up? Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. 3.3.1. Beautiful. Thank you. So the new recommendation 3.3.1 has been approved. Thank you. We'll move to recommendation 3.3.
It should be 4, but 3.
I'm sorry, 3.4. Thank you.
Typo.
Yep, got it.
Conduct an assessment of relationship violence curriculum.
Is there a motion to approve recommendation 3.4?
Eric Ebersol, so moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Ebersol. Scott, I think I saw you.
Yep, I was trying to move it, but I hit mute by accident, so I'll second it.
All right, and Scott will second. Thank you very much. We have a motion to second. Any discussion on recommendation 3.4? Hearing none, we'll vote on recommendation 3.4. Recommendation 3.4 has been approved. Thank you. We'll move to recommendation 3.5. Kate?
Expand the use and awareness of Safe Schools Maryland throughout Maryland schools.
Is there a motion to approve recommendation 3.5?
Dave Engel.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
Second, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. We have a motion to second. Any discussion on recommendation 3.5? Seeing and hearing none, we'll vote. Recommendation 3.5 has been approved. Thank you. Recommendation 4.1. Kate?
Explore creative solutions to expand the availability of safe after-school activities, which include transportation.
Is there a motion to approve recommendation 4.1?
So moved. This is Andrew.
Thank you,
Second,
Andrew. We have a
Eric
motion
Ebersol.
and a second from Delegate Ebersol. Thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion on recommendation 4.1? Hearing, seeing none, we'll vote. Recommendation 4.1 has been approved. Thank you. We'll go to recommendation 4.2. Kate?
Expand the availability of transportation for after-school programs.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve recommendation 4.2?
A quick question. Is there any difference in 4.2, Captain Herring, 4.2 and 4.1?
Yes, from the last discussion, I'll jump in here. The first was about exploring solutions to expand after-school activities and ensuring that they have transportation. This was specific to existing after-school programs and identifying ways to expand the availability of transportation. So one was only specific to the transportation components for after-school activities.
Okay, thank you. It just seemed that 4.2 could be subsumed within 4.1.
If I could also, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please. Delegate
Thank you.
Eversole.
This one's a little more direct, and I'm curious if our purview, we actually have the funding or the skills to actually say we're going to expand it rather than language similar to 4.1, where we would explore ways to help do that. Just a question if we should perhaps tamp down the language a little bit, or maybe we're looking into using some of the funding for that. But that's the nature of my question.
Thank you, Delegate Eversole. If anybody else has similar concerns, I'd love to hear from you for the group. My thought, Delegate Eversole, is that any and all these recommendations, as stated before, are going forward to the sub-cabinet, and the sub-cabinet then has the ability to look at funding and other mechanisms, which they may or may not move forward. But we certainly could be more specific to the language if that helps the group.
Given that these recommendations don't tie down the MCSS, I think I would move favorable on this recommendation at this point, given your response.
Thank you.
No issue from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Herring. Seeing no other comments, we'll vote on recommendation 4.2. Thank you. Recommendation 4.2 has been approved. Recommendation 4.3, Kate.
Explore after-school mentoring programs that remain in place all the way through a student's school career. This would help increase engagement and make schools feel like complete campus communities.
Is there a motion to approve recommendation 4.3?
James Bill motion.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Dave Engel.
Thank you, Dave. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on recommendation 4.3? Seeing and hearing none, excuse me, we'll go ahead and vote on recommendation 4.3.
We're still waiting for one person to vote.
Thank you. Thank you. Recommendation 4.3 has been approved. Moving on to recommendation 5.1, Kate.
Develop multiple strategies for filling gaps in school and school support staffing at the state and local levels.
Do we have a motion to approve recommendation 5.1?
So moved.
Thank you, Delegate Eversole. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, this is Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion on recommendation 5.1? Seeing and hearing none, we'll vote on recommendation 5.1. Thank you. Recommendation 5.1 has been approved. Recommendation 5.2, Kate?
Provide data on current mental behavioral health staffing levels by school type, i.e. elementary, middle, high, compared with student enrollment numbers and ideal ratios identified by the National Association of School Psychologists.
Do we have a motion to approve recommendation 5.2?
I have a question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the National Association does identify school ideal school ratios, but my one question is if we should maybe cite to one of the blueprint reports, because there are other professionals that they cite. So there's the psychologists, the social workers, and the school counselors. It's the same ratios, but at least we'll ensure we're aligning with the blueprint. So if that makes sense, we could use the 2019 interim report from the commission as where we're saying the ideal ratios should come from. So just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, do you have a, well, no, we've already, let me hold that. Dawn, thoughts on Scott's recommendation to align language in this recommendation with the blueprint?
I think you could go ahead and approve or vote on this recommendation, and the instruction to the staff is to use the commission's report.
That's guidance.
As right. So that would be what it's keyed to, but that doesn't, that reference doesn't need to be in the thing you're voting on. That's an explanatory piece and an operational piece. So.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion on recommendation 5.2? Seeing and hearing none, we'll vote on 5.2. Thank you. Recommendation 5.2 has been approved. We'll move to recommendation 6.1. Kate?
Develop guidance on the investigation and response to social media threats made against schools.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve recommendation 6.1?
Approved, yes.
Thank you, Tom. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second, this is Lee.
Thank you, Lee. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on recommendation 6.1?
Just real quick, it's Sheriff Adams. I think maybe Dawn could clarify again as a point of clarification. Is this if this would go forward? Obviously, there's criminal and legal things that would come into play on what we can do and can't do in investigations. So I'm sure that would kind of be clarified as this would go forward in developing guidance in the investigation. There's certain things we can and can't do. So just want to kind of clarify that.
It was my understanding that this is, sorry, and I've got something in my eye. It was my understanding that this is something that relates to what the schools are doing in investigating these threats rather than from a law enforcement perspective.
I was just reading under the observation, it says regarding what law enforcement and educators can do in response. So, I mean, I agree that, some parameters and things are great. And what this is making reference to is some of the unrealistic things that we can and can't do, which are great, but there are parameters.
Sure. So like, right, the observation is that there are unrealistic expectations, and that references law enforcement. The recommendation that you're voting on is to develop guidance on the investigation and response to social media threats made against schools. Obviously, that's a partnership between the school and the local law enforcement who have to conduct the investigation. If it's potential criminal or other conduct that warrants a law enforcement response. But it's not unique to law enforcement, and it's about a collaborative approach to that, and communications out to parents too, because that's been a big concern with respect to hearing that there's a threat against the school, and then how should the school respond to it. So it's about that kind of broader guidance rather than the nuts and bolts of what law enforcement should do in their own jobs. Does that make sense?
Yep, great.
If I may, I think this is one that cuts both ways. Because of the concern in the introductory part, this guidance would actually perhaps say what you can and cannot do. In other words, it would help to develop guidance for further investigations and responses, but would also cite the limits that Mr. Adams is referring to. So I think it's good. I think it probably actually references both of them then.
Thank you.
Hey, Dawn, Doctor, this is Dave. Just following up on Sheriff Adams. When I look at this, I almost recommend that in the language, it says develop guidance on the criminal and administrative investigation in response to social media threats, so that it's understood that in some circumstances, law enforcement isn't going to conduct a criminal investigation because it does not meet the requirement. But the school is going to still do an administrative investigation into it for possible suspension or discipline against the student. That might clarify it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I certainly think we can amend the language. We'll need to go forward with the recommendation that has been approved and seconded.
Right.
And then we'll have to circle back.
Right.
Seeing and hearing no other discussion, let's vote on 6.1 as written.
And then we can entertain a motion on modified language.
If it does not move
Right.
forward.
If it does not move forward.
I'm assuming, Dawn, that means that recommendation 6.1 is not approved.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So Jessica, I just sent her the information to add the phrase that Dave Engel had recommended, where
Okay, perfect.
criminal and or administrative investigation. So if we can have a motion to amend that language from 6.1 to include the phrase criminal and or administrative investigation. There would need to be a motion and a second in order to consider that and take a vote on it.
Thank you, Dawn. Is there a motion to approve 6.11? We'll see the language momentarily in the vote that adds, as Dawn shared, criminal and or administrative to the guidance.
This is Sheriff Adams, so moved.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Dave Engel, sir.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
We have a motion second. Any additional discussion or any discussion, excuse me, on the proposed amendment to recommendation 6.1? Seeing and hearing none. We'll vote when ready. Thank you. Thank you. Recommendation 6.11 has been approved. We're going to move on to recommendation 7.1. Kate, before you get started, I'm going to bow out at this time and head to my parent meeting. You all are fantastic. Thank you so much for spending the last couple of years together.
Yeah,
Best
well,
of luck to everyone.
we
And
should throw a party for you, but we're just going to have to say goodbye to you here, I suppose.
No.
I'm going to take you up on that party, Delegate Ebersol.
All right. All right.
Best of luck to everybody. Thank you for being so wonderful. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
All right. And he's gone. So, well, hello, everyone. Without objection, we'll move forward. Ms. Hession, if you would read recommendation 7.1 for us, please.
Yes. Identify existing federal and state funding available for schools which support comprehensive preparedness efforts for all schools, including private and non-public.
It's read. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'll second. This is Lee.
Thanks, Lee. I have a second. So it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Seeing none, if we can put the ballot up, we can vote on this one. Looks to me as if we have 100%, and this will, Dawn, you can confirm that this passes?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to recommendation 7.2, Ms. Hession.
Request additional state funding to support comprehensive preparedness efforts for all schools, including private and non-public.
Recommendation is read. Do I have any discussion or a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Andrew. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, that's Tom.
Thank you, Tom. You're all lighting up okay for me here. I can see you all. It's been properly moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, and we can wait a second, we'll take a vote. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, it's up for a vote.
We're waiting for one vote.
Okay, one person out there, turn on, go back to your Zoom screen and vote for us, please.
Jess, make sure you're not waiting for Dr. Olato.
That's a good point. We
Yeah.
we have a
We're down to
result.
13 now, so.
Ms. Lukey, do we have a favorable vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we've moved, that one is approved. Moving on to recommendation 7.3, Session, if you'd read that for us.
Expand preparedness guidance and resources to support comprehensive school emergency preparedness efforts. This may include the development of new guidance documents, exercise templates, video training, and other resources to support school emergency preparedness efforts statewide.
It's read. I'll either entertain commentary or a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Tress. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tiffin. Is there any further discussion? If not, Tom, nope, you lit up for a second there. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote on recommendation 7.3. And Dawn, Ms. Lukey, I know, sorry. Looks like we have a favorable vote there.
Yes, we do. And you can call me Dawn. It's okay.
You know. Recommendation 7.3 is approved. Let's move on to observation 8 and the recommendations there. Recommendation 8.1, session.
The state should provide cybersecurity recommendations, training, and resources to assist schools and school systems in conducting cyber assessments and cyber response.
Are there any comments or is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Tress, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Manfred.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. And we have a motion and a second proper. Is there any further discussion on recommendation 8.1? All right, seeing none, let's have a vote. And Ms. Lukey, it looks like we have a positive vote for that one.
Yes.
Okay, recommendation 8.1 is approved. Recommendation 8.2, Ms. Hession.
Provide training and resources for students and guardians on cybersecurity safety at home.
Having been read, if there's any commentary, or I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Tress.
Sheriff Adams, second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a proper second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote on recommendation 8.2, please. And Lukey, it looks like we got a proper vote for that one. So we approved the board approves recommendation 8.2. Moving on to recommendation 8.3, Ms. Hession.
Improve or expand digital citizenship education and awareness for students to help them better understand their digital footprint and help them make good decisions when using online media.
Having been read, is there any commentary or is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Been properly moved. Is it second?
Dave Engel, sir.
Thank you very much, Dave. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote on observation 8.3. May have said observation, certainly recommendation, and it looks like we have a positive vote. Ms. Lukey, confirmed.
Correct.
Recommendation 8.3 is approved by the board. Moving on to observation number 9 and their recommendations there. We are now on recommendation 9.1. Can we have a read of that, please?
Develop education and guidance on how to quickly identify and address inaccurate information while balancing response efforts which do not dilute effective communication strategies. This should include the development of a public infographic to explain the process from the identification of a threat through the investigation and resolution.
Give everyone a second to absorb that one. It's a lot of words. If there's any commentary, it'd be accepted, but also a motion would be entertained.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Tress. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I have a motion and a proper second. Is there any further concern or comment? Seeing none, let's take a vote. And Ms. Lukey, you can confirm that we have a positive vote on that one.
Correct.
So recommendation 9.1 is adopted. Move on to observation 10 and the recommendations therein. Recommendation 10.1. Let's have an audio on that one.
The IAC, MSDE, and MCSS should review existing facility security guidance and develop recommendations for minimum physical security, including design and technology, that have the least negative effects on students.
Recommendation 10.1 is read. Is there any commentary or is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Tress has moved, and I have a second from Mr. Tiffin. If there's any further commentary, if not, we'll take a vote. Let's go. There we go. Slicky, you'll confirm that we have a positive vote on that one?
Correct.
So we adopt recommendation 10.1. Recommendation 10.2, please.
Continue to provide public and private schools with access to funding to address physical security and equipment upgrades.
Is there any commentary or a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Albin.
I'll second. This is me.
Thank you, Ms. Oppenheim. Appreciate that. We're on 10.2. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote on 10.2. Ms. Lukey, you'll confirm that we have a positive vote for that.
Correct.
10.2, recommendation 10.2 is adopted. Recommendation 10.3, please.
Develop recommendations to address non-physical security approaches to improve the safety of our school.
Having been read, is there any commentary or a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Tress. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tiffin, it's been moved and seconded. We're on recommendation 10.3. Is there any comment or further comment? Sorry. Seeing none, let us take a vote, please. All right. Oh, we don't have it yet. Sorry. I'm already scrolling down. There we go. We have a vote, a positive vote. Is that correct, Ms. Lukey, for 10.3? Then 10.3 is adopted. And this is our last recommendation. From observation 11, recommendation 11.1, please.
Bring together local law enforcement agencies and school systems to review the existing Safe to Learn Act grant language and discuss potential amendments to the statute, development of a grant regulation, or grant administrative changes, excuse me.
I like the word legislation, always makes me happy. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or is there a motion?
Sheriff Adams, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Appreciate that, Sheriff. Do we have a second?
Dave Engel, sir.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let us vote on this one, please. And I think, Ms. Lukey, you can confirm that we have a positive vote on recommendation 11.1. And so
Yes.
thank you. And the board adopts recommendation 11.1. Okay, that brings us to the end of the voting on our recommendations. I see a little other business on future agenda topics, but I'm going to defer to the very good staff here if there's anything that we need to bring up before we adjourn at this point.
So as part of your recommendation packet at the bottom, you'll see future agenda topics. Those are agenda topics that the board has identified that they would like to either have presented or discussed in the new school year. So this is just an open call for if there's any additional agenda topics you'd like presented the next school year.
So the floor is open if there's things that you would like to suggest or anything you think should be struck from future agenda topics. I'm a teacher, so I understand proper wait time. I'm just trying to make sure everybody's ready to go here. I'm not seeing any suggestions. However, I don't think that they have to be suggested specifically at this meeting. Certainly, if there are things that people come to realize are not there that they would like added, I'm sure offline we could find a way to get them on the agenda. Anything else for the good of the order from staff, first of all, from the folks at MCSS that work so hard for us? Ms. Lukey, anything from you? All right, then I think our business is complete per the agenda. And so I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I heard a lot of voices on that one. Thank you all very much. This meeting is now called to adjournment, and I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Oppenheim has a note up if you want to see it real quick in the chat, something that's going on. So before you go, if you want a quick peek at something. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, sir.